Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you a fantastic technique that will hide large pores to give you a beautiful poreless finish. I'm Sheena, and as I take you through this quick technique, don't forget that if you like it and find it useful, to click on the subscribe so that you can join me in this journey as I share beauty and lifestyle tips that are especially for us ladies who are over 50. Now, as we get older, our pores definitely can enlarge because our skin loses elasticity, which causes it to stretch and sag. You know, everything just goes south. Everything does. So in turn, this makes our pores look larger, and if you have an oily T-zone like I do, then the problem can be even more challenging. Now, I really like to approach my makeup in two ways. One is to ensure my skin is really healthy, because if your skin isn't in good condition, makeup will just not look as good. The second is to use products that work for mature skin, because what makeup work for us in our 30s or 40s, and the same for skincare, it doesn't necessarily work for us in our 50s. And just before I rip into this quick demo, don't lose hope if you have enlarged pores. Antioxidants like vitamin C, retinols, and exfoliating acids are all key ingredients that really help to minimize those annoying large pores. And I've done videos on both vitamin C and retinols, and I've included the link to these videos in the description below and above for you. Right, let's get on with this demo. I have prepared my skin as usual, so it is well moisturized, and I haven't used any primer or any other pore concealing product. You may notice when you use this technique that it can cause a little bit of exfoliation around any areas that are dry, and you may notice it more if you are using retinol products, which can dry the skin. So doing a quick exfoliation beforehand, if you're going to use this technique, is a good idea. And again, just remember to moisturize your skin well. For this technique, I'm going to use a foundation brush. I am using an IT Cosmetics brush, and it is brush number 6. Now, really importantly, please make sure your brush is really nice and clean if you use this method, because if you don't and your brush is loaded with old foundation, the bristles will not give you a nice finish, and you'll end up with a swirled look of foundation rather than a nice poreless looking skin. Right, I'll get closer so that you can see my oily T-zone, which is where I have my open pores. So the middle of my brow, down around my nose area and inner cheek area, and also on my chin. You may have also noticed that when you apply foundation, it can make your enlarged pores look even bigger, but this technique will give you that airbrush type of appearance. So what I'm going to do is just use my foundation brush, and when I apply the foundation, you will see that the pores start to diminish. But the trick is that you circle in one direction and then you buff in the opposite direction. And the idea is that you fill those pores in so that they are not as noticeable. So this is truly a fantastic technique, and you can see there the difference in my pores versus the other side. I'll continue just buffing away and getting the rest of my face covered. And the foundation that I'm using is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Foundation. And I really love this foundation, but it is so great. I very rarely use it during the day because it's kind of too good. It looks a bit weird looking completely airbrushed during the day. For my taste, That's just me. But as I say, during the day, I quite like to be pretty low key with my foundation, but I really wanted to use this one to show you how fantastic a finish using this technique can be. So remember, the idea is that you buff in one direction and then you buff in the other, and that will just fill those open pores so they're not as noticeable. So to recap, the technique is to use a circular buffing motion in one direction and then you buff in the opposite direction. Now, a tip also is to work quickly when you're applying foundation in this method. I find the foundations can start to set, so I like to work really quickly so that they keep their movement in order to give that beautiful airbrushed appearance that we're after. You may also have noticed that I didn't take the foundation up under my eye area. Now I do that for a really good reason. I find foundation under my eye area far too heavy, especially if I'm using a foundation that is giving me the coverage that I really want now as I've got older and my skin really is not close to being flawless. So I use eye-specific products that are much lighter than a foundation. Now, if I was to take a foundation under this area here, I can tell you it would just end up looking cakey, dry, lined, and usually the product will move, and that is definitely not what I'm after. But the technique I use, well, that's a story for another video. Also, with regards to taking foundation down onto your neck, that is not for me. Again, it's always your personal preference, but the reason that I don't do it is having foundation on your neck can just look really weird. I also get a crease in my neck if I put any foundation down there. Not a good look. I'm not going for a photo shoot. I don't want foundation all over my neck, and I certainly do not want foundation on my clothes. So what I do instead is I will take my bronzer down onto my neck area, which gives it a lovely blended look from forehead all the way down to where this area of my neck is actually quite pale. I just take my foundation under my chin, make sure that it's blended across my jaw area and under this area here, and that's as low as I go. The final part of this flawless airbrushed makeup trick is to use a loose powder. Now, I'm going to use Fenty Beauty powder, which I absolutely love. Generally, you may see that it's recommended to use a powder puff, but I much prefer using a beauty blender sponge and make sure that it's damp, squeeze out as much moisture as you can. And I find that using this to press the powder into my foundation gives me a much more beautiful finish. It stops it looking too matte, and you will find that your natural glow will work its way through during the day anyway, but I just find this works much better when working the powder into my foundation. And I have got powder on the sponge, and that just simply gets pressed into those areas where I have got open pores. So the pressed powder technique pushes product into the pores to give you a more flawless appearance. And I don't particularly worry, as mentioned, about my skin looking too matte. I have a lot of natural shine anyway. I work to control that. I would normally dust loose powder over the rest of my face anyway, because it helps me when I'm applying other product on top of my foundation. It removes the drag that a foundation often has when you are trying to apply things like blusher and highlighter. Also too, if you want to give your face a little bit of glow, if you've used powder, you can always use highlighter just to give you that really pretty glow in the areas that you prefer. Anyway, makeup is makeup. You do things your way. These are just suggestions for you. There you go. It is a really simple but very effective trick. I hope you can see the difference that has made to my skin. We just love simple tricks, don't we? And it's really great to have things like this that work on our mature skins and our mature faces. If you've enjoyed this and you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe, because I will keep sharing these beauty tips and tricks that are especially for us ladies who are over 50 and have the challenges of mature skin. Thank you so much for your time today. I will see you next time. Bye.